On the outskirts of the small, forgotten town of Eldridge lay an ancient cemetery, its wrought iron gate twisted and rusted, as if reluctant to let anyone in. Locals spoke of it in hushed tones, warning of a malevolent spirit that roamed the grounds at night, drawn to the living like a moth to a flame. Despite the stories, curiosity gnawed at Alex, a restless college student eager to disprove the superstitions that shrouded the graveyard. One chilly autumn evening, emboldened by a group of friends who urged him to explore the cemetery, Alex donned a warm jacket, grabbed his flashlight, and set out toward the graveyard. The air was crisp, and the sky was dotted with clouds that seemed to swallow the moonlight. With each step, the wind howled through the trees, creating an eerie symphony that accompanied their nervous laughter. As they approached the entrance, the gate creaked open, revealing rows of weathered tombstones. Their inscriptions long faded. The friends entered, their voices dropping to whispers as they navigated the narrow paths, illuminated only by the beam of Alex's flashlight. They shared ghost stories and dared each other to touch the gravestones, but unease settled over them like a heavy fog. "Let's find the oldest grave," suggested Lisa, her eyes glinting with excitement and fear. The group agreed, and they made their way deeper into the cemetery, where the air grew colder and the shadows longer. They stumbled upon a dilapidated mausoleum, its stone facade crumbling, vines clawing at its structure like fingers grasping for life. "Here it is," Alex exclaimed, pointing to a weathered headstone half buried under leaves. The inscription read, "Eleanor Hawthorne, 1823 to 1867. They gathered around, peering closely at the engraving, a chilling sensation creeping up their spines. "Let's take a picture," said Ryan, pulling out his phone. The flash illuminated the tombstone, casting unsettling shadows. As the light flickered, the air thickened, and an inexplicable silence enveloped them. It felt as if the cemetery itself had drawn a breath, waiting. Suddenly, a whisper slithered through the air, barely audible yet unmistakable. "Help me ... double quotes." The friends exchanged nervous glances, their bravado wavering. Alex, dismissing it as a trick of the wind, laughed. "Come on, it's just the wind." But a knot of dread twisted in his stomach. They moved on, deciding to explore the rest of the cemetery, but with every step, the whispers grew louder, echoing between the tombstones. "Help me ... help me ... double quotes." Each repetition sounded more desperate, more urgent. It felt as if the very ground beneath their feet was alive, pulsing with an unnameable energy. "We should go back," Lisa said, her voice trembling. "This doesn't feel right." But before anyone could respond, a chilling gust of wind swept through the cemetery, extinguishing their flashlight. Panic surged through them as they fumbled to turn it back on, the darkness pressing in like a suffocating shroud. "Stay close," Alex shouted, trying to maintain control. They huddled together, the whispers now swirling around them, each plea filling the air with an icy dread. "Help me ... double quotes." In the dark, Ryan's voice trembled. "What if it's a spirit? What if it needs us?" "Don't be ridiculous," Alex snapped, though doubt crept into his mind. "It's probably just an animal." As they struggled to reorient themselves, Lisa spotted a faint light flickering in the distance. "Look," she pointed, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. They moved toward the light, its warmth beckoning them like a siren's song. But as they approached, the light vanished, leaving them in an even deeper darkness. The whispers intensified, becoming a cacophony of cries, drowning out their thoughts. "Help me, please." It was as if the very air was charged with sorrow. In a moment of terror, Alex shouted, "What do you want from us?" The question hung in the air, heavy with dread. Then, silence. The whispers faded to a mere echo, replaced by an oppressive stillness that felt suffocating. The friends stood frozen, fear coiling tightly around their hearts. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, and a low rumble echoed through the cemetery. The mausoleum's door creaked open, revealing an abyss of darkness within. A figure emerged, pale and ethereal, its eyes glowing with a haunting light. "Help me ... double quotes," it rasped, reaching out with skeletal fingers. The friends stumbled back, terror gripping them as they realized they were staring into the face of Eleanor Hawthorne, her visage twisted in anguish. "Why do you disturb my rest?" she wailed, her voice a haunting melody that resonated deep within them. "I cannot find peace ... I need your help ... double quotes." Panic surged as they turned to flee, but the cemetery seemed to shift around them, the paths winding into a labyrinth of despair. They ran, the whispers following like a swarm of bees, drowning out their screams. Help me, help me. As they neared the gate, Alex felt a cold grip on his arm. He turned to see Lisa, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. We can't leave, it won't let us. With sheer will, Alex broke free and sprinted toward the gate, the oppressive presence of the cemetery chasing them. The whispers morphed into screams, each cry more desperate than the last. Help me, you cannot leave. They burst through the gate, hearts pounding, gasping for air as they collapsed onto the ground outside. The cemetery loomed behind them, silent now, the whispers fading into the night. Gasping, they looked back, expecting to see Eleanor's ghost standing at the gate, but nothing remained except the rustling leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. They huddled together, adrenaline coursing through their veins. What just happened? Ryan panted, still shaking. I don't know, Alex stammered, his mind racing. But we need to warn everyone. We shouldn't have come here. As they stumbled away from the cemetery, the shadows seemed to close in around them, and for the first time, Alex felt the weight of the legends. He glanced back one last time, and for a fleeting moment, he swore he saw a figure standing at the gate, watching, waiting. In the weeks that followed, the friends couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows danced at the corners of their vision, whispers echoed in their minds, and sleep eluded them as they replayed that night over and over. One stormy evening, Alex decided to return to the cemetery, hoping to confront his fears and put the restless spirit to rest. Armed with a flickering flashlight and a shaky resolve, he crossed the threshold once more, the gate creaking ominously behind him. The air was thick with anticipation, the storm clouds swirling above like a portent of doom. He walked among the tombstones, calling out for Eleanor, hoping to communicate with her spirit. Eleanor, he shouted into the abyss, I'm here to help you. But the only reply was the wind howling through the trees, and the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed around him, and the temperature plummeted. The whispering returned, more frenzied than before. You should not have come back. Realizing the depth of his folly, Alex turned to flee, but the cemetery shifted again, paths twisting like a maze. Panic seized him as he ran, the whispers transforming into a terrifying chorus of agony. Help me, you must help me. The voice twisted around him, pulling him deeper into the heart of the cemetery. Desperate, Alex stumbled toward the mausoleum, hoping to find some answers. As he reached the door, it swung open, revealing a darkness that pulsed with an unnatural energy. Summoning every ounce of courage, he stepped inside, feeling the cold grip of despair wrap around him. The air was thick with the weight of countless souls, their anguish palpable. Why do you disturb us? A voice boomed, echoing from the shadows. You cannot escape the past. In that moment, Alex understood the truth. The cemetery was a prison, not just for Eleanor, but for all the spirits bound to it. Each cry for help was a reminder of their unfinished business, their tragic fates intertwined with the living. Please, I want to help, he shouted into the void, desperation spilling from his heart. But the darkness thickened, closing in around him. You cannot help them, you are one of us now. The walls of the mausoleum trembled, and Alex felt the pull of the earth beneath him, dragging him down into the depths of despair. With a final surge of will, he reached for the light, forcing himself to remember the laughter of his friends, the warmth of the living. No, I refuse. In a burst of adrenaline, he pushed through the darkness, racing back toward the door. The whispers clawed at him, a cacophony of despair, but he fought against it, tearing himself free from the suffocating grip. Bursting out into the night air, Alex gasped, falling to his knees outside the mausoleum. The cemetery loomed ominously behind him, the whispers fading, but the weight of their pain lingered in the air. He fled the cemetery, vowing never to return. But as he glanced back one last time, he felt the sorrow of the restless spirits, a haunting reminder that some places were never meant to be disturbed. From that day on, the whispers followed him, a chilling reminder that in the depths of the graveyard, the souls of the forgotten were forever seeking solace, trapped between the living and the dead. And sometimes, curiosity could awaken a darkness best left undisturbed. In the quiet town of Ashwood, there was an old cemetery known as Shadow Grove. It was a place where the sun rarely penetrated, and a thick mist often lingered, giving the area an eerie quality. Locals whispered tales of the cemetery at dusk, sharing stories about the gravekeeper, a mysterious figure named Mr. Graves, who was said to know the secrets of the dead. One autumn evening, a group of friends Rachel, Sam, and Jason decided to explore Shadow Grove, drawn by the allure of the unknown. Armed with flashlights and a sense of adventure, they slipped through the rusted iron gate just as the sun dipped below the horizon. As they wandered deeper into the cemetery, the chill of the evening air settled around them. The gravestones stood like silent sentinels, their inscriptions faded by time. Laughter echoed among the shadows, but soon it turned into nervous whispers as the atmosphere thickened. "Did you hear that?" Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's just the wind," Sam replied, though his eyes darted around uneasily. They continued walking until they reached an overgrown section, where a large, ornate mausoleum loomed ahead. The door was slightly ajar, as if inviting them inside. Jason pushed it open, the creaking sound echoing in the stillness. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of damp stone and decay. They stepped in cautiously, their flashlights illuminating the cold marble sarcophagi that lined the walls. In the center of the room stood an intricately carved pedestal, and on it lay an ancient book. "Look at this," Jason said, moving closer to the pedestal. He opened the book, revealing pages filled with strange symbols and faded writings. As he flipped through the pages, a gust of wind swept through the mausoleum, extinguishing their flashlights. Panic surged through them. What the hell was that? Rachel shouted, her heart racing. "Stay calm," Sam said, trying to sound reassuring. "Let's just get out of here." But as they turned to leave, the heavy door slammed shut, trapping them inside. The air grew cold, and a low, haunting whisper filled the room. "You should not have come." Terrified, the friends pressed against the door, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, swirling around them like a storm. Jason glanced back at the book, and a figure began to emerge from the shadows, a tall man dressed in tattered funeral garb, his face obscured by a hood. "Welcome, children," the figure intoned, his voice echoing with the weight of centuries. "I am the keeper of shadows, and you have awakened that which should remain undisturbed." "What do you want from us?" Rachel cried, backing away. "Your curiosity has a price," he replied, stepping closer. "Each of you must confront the shadows within." Before they could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting into nightmarish forms that seemed to reach out toward them. The friends screamed, but their voices were swallowed by the encroaching darkness. "Face your fears," the keeper commanded, his voice booming. "Only then will you find your way back." One by one, the friends were engulfed in darkness, each drawn into their own personal nightmare. Rachel found herself standing in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by familiar toys. But the laughter that echoed was twisted, filled with malice. Shadows took the form of her long-lost pet, its eyes glowing with hunger. "You abandoned me," it whispered, and Rachel's heart sank as she realized the truth. Meanwhile, Sam was thrust into a nightmarish version of his high school. He stood alone in a crowded hallway, where laughter turned to taunts, echoing in his ears, "You're nothing, you'll always be alone." Shadows morphed into faces he recognized, twisting into grotesque mockeries of his past. Jason found himself in a dark forest, the trees closing in around him. Whispers filled the air, revealing secrets he had buried deep within. "You let her die," a voice hissed. "You could have saved her." The trio fought against their fears, struggling to break free from the shadows that sought to consume them. Each of them faced the darkness within, the pain and regret they had long tried to forget. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the shadows began to recede. The friends found themselves back in the mausoleum, gasping for breath. The keeper stood before them, his expression inscrutable. "Have you learned?" he asked, his voice softer now. They nodded, tears streaming down their faces. "We're sorry." Rachel managed to say, "We didn't mean to disturb this place." "Your fears are your own," the keeper replied. "But know this, curiosity can lead to dark paths. Choose wisely." With a wave of his hand, the heavy door creaked open, revealing the moonlit night outside. The friends stumbled out, trembling but alive. As they left Shadow Grove behind, they felt a weight lift from their hearts. The experience had changed them, forcing them to confront the shadows they had kept hidden. They vowed never to return, knowing some places were better left undisturbed. But as they walked away, the echoes of the keeper's words lingered in their minds. Curiosity can lead to dark paths, and in the depths of Shadow Grove, The keeper continued his watch, waiting for the next curious souls to wander to close. In the heart of Oak Ridge, a small town known for its rich history, lay a cemetery that had been established in the early 1800s. It was a sprawling plot of land, with crumbling headstones and ancient oaks that whispered secrets to those who dared to listen. The townsfolk often avoided the cemetery after dark, sharing stories of strange noises and shadows that moved on their own. One chilly October night, a young caretaker named Brian found himself working late. It was his first week on the job, and he had volunteered for the evening shift to earn extra pay. Armed with a flashlight and a heavy jacket, he patrolled the grounds, feeling both a sense of responsibility and a creeping unease. As he walked the paths lined with graves, the wind howled through the trees, creating an eerie symphony of rustling leaves and distant whispers. It was a night like any other until he heard the sound of soft crying. Pausing, Brian strained to listen. The sound was faint, yet persistent, coming from the far end of the cemetery. Against his better judgment, he followed the noise, his heart pounding in his chest. As he approached, the crying grew louder, more desperate. "Hello," he called out, his voice trembling. "Is someone there?" The crying stopped abruptly. An unsettling silence fell over the cemetery. Brian felt a chill run down his spine. He stepped closer to the sound, which seemed to be coming from behind an old mausoleum. Peering around the corner, he saw a young girl sitting on the ground, her back turned to him, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders. "Hey, are you okay?" Brian asked cautiously. "Do you need help?" The girl didn't respond. Slowly, she turned her head to look at him. Her face was pale, and her eyes were hollow, as if she hadn't slept in days. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I can't find my way home." Brian's heart raced. "Where is your home?" "I can help you get there." The girl pointed toward a distant part of the cemetery, shrouded in darkness. "It's over there. Please, I'm scared." Against his better judgment, Brian felt compelled to assist her. He took a step closer, but as he did, the girl's expression changed. Her eyes widened, and a look of sheer terror washed over her face. "No, don't come any closer." Confused and frightened, Brian stopped in his tracks. "What's wrong? I'm here to help you." "You shouldn't be here," she cried, her voice rising in pitch. "He'll see you." Just then, the wind picked up, swirling leaves around him like a whirlwind. The girl's face twisted in fear, and she suddenly vanished from sight, leaving Brian alone in the dark. Panic surged through him. He turned to run, but the atmosphere around him felt heavy, oppressive. The wind howled as shadows flickered in the corners of his vision. "Get out," a voice echoed, deep and resonant, causing him to freeze. Heart racing, he stumbled backward, trying to escape the sensation of being watched. He sprinted back toward the entrance, the darkness closing in around him. As he ran, he heard footsteps behind him, heavy, dragging, relentless. He burst through the gate, gasping for air, and didn't stop until he reached his car. Slamming the door shut, he fumbled for the keys, his hands shaking. He glanced back at the cemetery, but all was quiet. After what felt like an eternity, he started the engine and sped away. The image of the girl burned into his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had been part of something far more sinister than he could comprehend. The next day, Brian returned to the cemetery, determined to uncover the truth. He spoke to the locals, who shared a chilling story. Decades ago, a young girl had gone missing from the town, last seen playing near the cemetery. Despite extensive searches, her body was never found, and she was presumed dead. Brian felt a chill grip his heart. The girl he had encountered, the one who had asked for help, was a ghost, forever trapped in the cemetery, unable to find peace. From that day on, Brian quit his job, never to return to the cemetery again. But sometimes, when the wind howled through the trees, he could still hear the faint sound of a girl crying, a haunting reminder that some spirits remained lost, waiting for someone to help them find their way home. Alright everyone, that brings us to the end of our story. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. And if you have similar stories you'd like to share with us, feel free to reach out. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.